silver is going to remain valuable. Apple uses it for their screens. Gold is going to remain valuable. Indians use it for their weddings. And then Bitcoin is going to remain valuable. Everybody uses it to transfer value without a middleman to anybody else on the planet. So all of those things are going to remain valuable. Dollars, that's paper. They can make as much of it as they want. Is that going to remain valuable? Well, I think everybody is cottoning on to the idea that it's not going to remain valuable. And it's going to go the same way that all fiat currencies eventually do.
Prepare for shock and awe. Gold, silver, copper, and zinc. This 30-cent a share company could be looking at life-changing gains. Even Resource Capital Inc., a $1 billion private equity fund made up of expert mining analysts and investors, just quietly took an 18% stake in the company. Learn more at crushthestreet.com/hardassets.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into crushthestreet.com. We're going to have a discussion today, a philosophical discussion. We're going to cover Bitcoin, and we're going to talk about government. And this guest that I have on the line with me today, his name's Dave Scotese. He's with lipmocracy.blogspot.com. Smart guy. I've actually purchased Bitcoin through him a few times now and have had very deep conversations about life that I leave after meeting him wishing that we had recorded the talks that we had, because they are just so good, and he's got a lot of insight to share with everyone today, and we're gonna record this conversation and share it all with you guys. So Dave, thanks for joining me today.
Wow, Ken, thank you. That's quite an introduction. I hope I live up to it.
So Dave, you're the biggest expert I know when it comes to Bitcoin and what's going on with Bitcoin. You even understand how it works, all the algorithms and the miners, the production, and the intricacies that go on in regards to Bitcoin. So I'll start you off with this. What is the problem with people looking at Bitcoin and saying, hey, Bitcoin versus silver and gold, having one or the other? What is the issue with this?
I think it's like asking somebody to choose between good food and good drink. They're both useful. They're useful in different ways. And I think picking one over the other is a big mistake. The advice that we get is diversify your portfolio, and going with a digital asset that can be transferred all over the planet, and it basically uses half the planet as the middleman for trust. That's completely different from a hard asset like silver or gold. And it makes as much sense to say, well, silver or gold, silver versus gold, as it does to say silver and gold versus Bitcoin. It's all good.
Yeah. Well, Bitcoin has moved substantially. I'm looking at it right now. It's about 450, and it has moved. We've seen what silver has done in the last couple of weeks. Silver is trading over $17 an ounce. What are we seeing with Bitcoin? Is this catching some of the commodity upswing?
I can't guess on that. I don't know. What is interesting about Bitcoin, which might be affecting the price a little bit, is that the reward to the miners is going to be cut in half sometime in July probably. And so when that happens, it's basically the supply is going to be cut in half. Okay, the supply of new Bitcoin is going to be cut in half. So if the miners recognize that, and most of them I assume do, the supply-demand curve, there's something to it, then that's going to make the price go up, because there's not going to be as much Bitcoin getting produced. And so that's going to make the price go up. Are we experiencing that now because people are planning ahead? I think it's a little bit too early. I mean, I have my pet prediction, but I'm right about 50% of the time, so I won't even bother saying what it is.
Well, I mean, what is your accumulation strategy when it comes to Bitcoin, and what do you suggest? I know you're not, giving financial advice here, but what do you do personally in terms of savings and, what you do with your Bitcoin?
I measure the value of things in dollars because everybody else does. And then anything that's valuable, I think, depending on how easy it is to get and to store, put your savings into those things about evenly. So my liquid assets are Bitcoin and gold and silver, and that's three things, and I've got about 1/3 of my savings in each one. And that's my recommendation.
Wow, that's it is very aggressive compared to a lot of other people who say, hey, no more than 5%, no more than 10%. But you're a believer, though. You strongly believe in what you do. And what are your thoughts as to why to do this then, Dave? Is it currency diversification, the inevitable direction of the U.S. dollar?
Well, you have to have, if you're going to have savings, you need to store it somehow. And to diversify your methods of storage, diversify the medium in which you store it. That's really the purpose it serves for me, is because I think silver is going to remain valuable. Apple uses it for their screens. Gold is going to remain valuable. Indians use it for their weddings. And then Bitcoin is going to remain valuable. Everybody uses it to transfer value without a middleman to anybody else on the planet. So all of those things are going to remain valuable. Dollars, that's paper. They can make as much of it as they want. Is that going to remain valuable? Well, I think everybody is cottoning on to the idea that it's not going to remain valuable, and it's going to go the same way that all fiat currencies eventually do.
So, Dave, let's talk about the government here, and you've talked about this before with me, and we've had a conversation about extra governmental justice system based on no coercion. But, there's a lot of things that we can discuss regarding this issue, so I want you to kick it off with your thoughts just on this issue, and we'll go from there.
Well, I think that a lot of people recognize some problems with the justice system that we have here in America. And I don't think it's just our country, but because, for example, the drug war has been exported, right, to lots of other countries, and which is a ridiculous thing to say people you're not allowed to grow certain plants because they affect the way you behave. And, it's really a personal responsibility issue, and take care of your friends and et cetera, but the authorities get involved. And that's just one piece of it. There's also, the Federal Reserve was created, and if you read G. Edward Griffin's book about the creature from Jekyll Island, it lays bare the fact that these bankers decided to basically defraud America by giving themselves permission to counterfeit money. Well, they call it print money. They create money out of thin air, and they lend it to the American people, and then they collect interest. Well, you're supposed to collect interest on money that you earned. I mean, there's all kinds of examples like that, and it's because people follow leaders, and they want leaders, and so they elect governments, and then the governments tell them the difference between right and wrong instead of letting them figure it out themselves. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, based on no coercion, respecting people,
exactly.
People being their own sovereign citizen. Anarchy kind of sounds like a curse word to a lot of people. It doesn't seem patriotic, but really all it is you are your own sovereign person and do no harm. That's the rule. Don't do harm. Don't inflict any harm on other people. And I think this is your idea of a more harmonious society. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, that's a good way to enable anarchy. Anarchy, I mean, I've thought a lot about what anarchy is really, because people ask me and they say, well, aren't you worried about chaos, etc.? And I think, well, I'm already living in anarchy. And what does that mean? I mean, the cops can still stop me. They could throw me in jail. They could fine me, et cetera, et cetera. So what do I mean if I say I'm living in anarchy? Well, that's inside my head. I follow my rules, and my rules involve, if somebody's pointing a gun at me and telling me what to do, and I think they're going to kill me if I don't, yeah, my rule says do whatever they say, because my life is more valuable than the next 5 or 10 minutes or a few days maybe of my behavior. And so it's my conscience telling me what I should do, the difference between right and wrong. They can make up laws. I could think about them and decide whether I agree or not. And that's what determines my behavior. So I call myself an anarchist. And I say, well, anybody who looks at the law and says, well, okay, the law tells me to do this, but my conscience tells me to do that. I choose to do the right thing, which is what my conscience tells me to do. Well, if that's how you are, then you're an anarchist in the way that I use the word. But to go back to the no coercion thing, the problem with the justice system we have is it relies heavily on coercion, not just for funding. It actually punishes people. It says, well, we made up a law that says you can't do that, and then you did it, so now we have to hurt you, throw you in jail or make you pay extra money or whatever. And then they do that to people, and that doesn't help. It might scare some people away from doing that thing that's supposedly bad, but what are the reasons that they shouldn't do it? Those reasons are not because other people will hurt you. That's a stupid reason. The reason is because that's hurting other people. Well, okay, who does it hurt when I run through a red light? Who does it hurt when I grow pot in my backyard? It doesn't hurt anybody, but there's still laws and they still feel obligated to punish. And so when I get to this extra governmental justice system that doesn't use any coercion, well, everybody can do that all the time. It's just be more aware of people who are doing bad things. Who's the cop who goes and snoops in the backyard and says, oh, I see you're growing pot plants, so I can get an arrest and I can get a promotion and I can get this and that and the other thing, so I'm going to go ahead and prosecute you. Well, that guy's being a jerk. And he's enabled to be a jerk by the legislators who made up the laws against growing pot or whatever.
Dave, what does an extra governmental justice system look like?
So you have people becoming aware that, I'm thinking of government agents, like I just said, the cop, or, for example, this judge, Nancy Edmonds, who ordered Doreen Hendrickson to sign a document as if it were true, and Doreen knows that it's false. Well, she believes it's false. She says, no, that's false. I can't sign that. So you have the cop or the judge or any government agent, and doesn't have to be a government agent. It's anybody that does something that you think is wrong. How does that work? Well, you tell people, this is what they did. I don't think it was right, and I think more people should know about it. And we spread that information. Well, when everybody knows that this person did this thing and lots of people feel like that wasn't the right thing to do, that person is going to get the message. They come into my store and I'm like, oh, I don't want to serve you because I know you did this thing and I don't like that. And there's a way for you to fix that, and I have no information that you're actually doing that. So fix it, and then you can go buy my stuff, or have me fix your computer or whatever. And as more and more people understand, here's a person that did this bad stuff, and we don't want to help them anymore, then they'll get the message.
So you're talking about like a Yelp app for people.
Sure.
Basically,
that's a good way to put it.
A free market that reviews people, and then, that's kind of an interesting thing. I wonder what the problems that would arise with something like that. Obviously, what's that?
Well, I was talking to a lawyer, Robert Johnson, from the Institute for Justice yesterday about this idea, and the problem that he saw is, you could make up anything about somebody and then start spreading it. You go to this Yelp for People app and you start spreading rumors about people, and yeah, sure, that's a problem. That is an existing problem, and we have coercive laws against it. How much good do they do? Well, I don't know. Go to a high school and ask the jocks and the cheerleaders, and just ask people, what about rumors? Does the law help? No. You have to learn to tolerate it and, spread truth and collect evidence and talk to people and be open and honest. And Sure, certainly in school, it's a little more difficult because they cram everybody together. You don't have freedom of association. But once you're out, if somebody badmouths you or libels you or whatever, you defend yourself somehow. And we do that now, and we'll continue doing that. That's the problem this lawyer came up with from the Institute for Justice. And I explained more to him, and he was like, well, yeah, it sounds like a good idea, so I'm glad you're having me talk about it now.
Well, I mean, it is very interesting, and the laws, of course, now that are in place is, serving people equally, no discrimination, and I think a lot of people might fear, let's say, you take a certain ethnic group, because I know this would be a liberal argument for it, and you say that this group is committing a higher percentage of crimes, so maybe your app would categorize a certain ethnic group if they were to start doing statistics on it and say, oh, look, you're discriminating against these people. And then, of course, the laws now are to make sure people aren't discriminated against in this sort of fashion. People kind of have this group thing and say, okay, we're not going to serve, red-haired individuals type of thing. Because of whatever.
Sure. Yeah, that would be a problem. I don't think the app would, if I designed it, it wouldn't have a function that says you could just pick a characteristic. You can't blame characteristics. What you blame is individuals. So identify the individual, and then you could put the blame in. And sure, somebody might start compiling statistics and discover that certainly people with red hair appear to be more intolerant or something, anything, then they can compile statistics and they can go about trying to make generalizations and harm people in some particular group because of some trait. That's their problem. And the app would help show everybody that they have this problem. And that's one of the things about the laws against discrimination. When you have laws against discrimination, you can't tell, because people aren't willing to break the law. You can't tell who's a racist, who's going to treat you badly because you're black or whatever. You can't tell because they're not allowed to show it, not officially. You have to go in there and get served and then wonder, well, that guy's kind of weird when he's around me. I wonder if it's because of my skin color, because I'm Asian, or because I'm Mexican, or because I'm black, or whatever. And you don't know, because he's not allowed to discriminate openly because there's a law against it. Well, if there was no law, people would know, oh yeah, that restaurant doesn't like black people, it doesn't like Mexicans, whatever. So, and over time, that restaurant is going to do more poorly because a certain chunk of the population spends their money elsewhere. That's a traditional libertarian argument. And I think there's some truth to it. Yeah. Let people do what they want, and they will shoot themselves in the foot. Stop making it illegal for people to hurt themselves.
Have you done any thinking about how that worked out, though, let's say in the 1950s, 1940s, when segregation was part of the government, part of society? And I wasn't around back then, and I don't know what the argument would be, but I'm sure people would say, hey, it was just ingrained in society to not like certain people.
It was ingrained in society by the legal system. There were, what was separate but equal, that was a law. Segregated schools, that was a law. When you try to analyze history, and you can't distinguish between what did the legislators create in society and what did society create in society, how do you tease those things apart? I look at human nature and I say, well, people are generally pretty cool, but if somebody wants to control other people and they're smart enough, they're going to rise to some position of power like a legislator. And then, so you get people up there and they start passing laws that start having bad effects, and people think that they're respectable and they justify and rationalize their laws somehow. And then you get a mess. And people think, oh, well, we have a mess because society's messy. Well, in that particular case, no, it was because some legislator screwed up in a way which was too subtle for people to detect. But, we eventually figured it out and said, okay, we can't have laws that distinguish between people based on their skin color. We don't want those laws.
Yeah.
Well, they kind of went the other way and said, well, okay, we're going to have laws like that, but they're going to benefit the people that we think would be. And so it's like, we want to control you one way or the other. It's like, okay.
One way or the other.
Yeah.
Dave, let's move on. Financial catfishing. What does this mean to you here in 2016?
Okay, so to catfish is to use an internet profile to pretend you're somebody who looks different than how you actually look. So financial catfishing is, there's some scammers out there and they get old women. It could be anybody, but many times it is lonely old people. They start interacting with them on the internet, and these people become their friends, sort of. And then the scammer's like, oh, a lot of times they say, I'm really rich and I can do this, that, and the other thing, but I'm stuck right now and I need whatever, a couple $1,000. And so, this person's like, oh, I can help my rich friend out, and then wouldn't that be great for me? Sure. And then they slowly bleed you and bleed you and bleed you, and you never figure it out, and then you have a heart attack and you die. And it sucks for everybody who loves that old person. And yeah, maybe they're lonely because there aren't so many people, but there's people who care about that kind of stuff, and I'm one of them. So, and actually that happened sort of to me. There's a scammer, and he asked to buy some Bitcoin, and he said he would have the cash sent to me. And so he did, and I called the number on the package, and I talked to the lady, and she told me a little bit of a different story, that, it was for her husband, and it goes back and forth. I sent this in my newsletter. I can't remember the details now, but I basically told him, if you want to have other people send me money, you better know that I'm going to call them to make sure they want to buy Bitcoin, or to make sure they trust you to send them Bitcoin. And are you still there?
Yes.
Yeah, this particular case was kind of disturbing to me because the woman involved is still deeply in love with the scammer, and she has an aide who helps her, and the aide recognized the problem and talked to her friend, and they found me through the internet, through a friend of mine, and suspected it. And I said, okay, yeah, that makes sense, because it made a lot of the pieces of the puzzle fit together for me, why this guy was telling me not to call his clients. He didn't want me to cut him out. And I'm like, you're trusting me with thousands of dollars, and you think that you can't trust me with the couple hundred that represents your cut? And he could never defend it. So when they contacted me, her aide contacted me, and we figured it all out.
So you never ended up sending the Bitcoin?
I sent some to him, but then we stopped, and I didn't send more. And I like to string them along a little. I like to put scammers in a position where they don't realize that they've been caught. Because what am I going to do? I could yell at them. That doesn't do any good. Really, my goal is to show them that if they did what I'm doing, be honest and open with people, to develop trust over time, you can make a lot more than what you're doing. Maybe you can make more money than I can, but you're running all the time and you're scared all the time that you're going to get caught. That doesn't happen to me. Why don't you do what I'm doing instead? It'd make the world a better place.
Yeah, no, good point, Dave. I mean, is this at all, do you have any thoughts as to how this would be solved in a more free market environment, a more uncontrolled justice system that it does not use coercion to implement the rules?
I think that the old lady's aide and her friend and I and some other people that we got involved would be more capable of protecting the people we care about if we didn't have to worry about, laws. There's certain laws that, like, I can't suppose openly that a person with a particular name is cheating people. I can't openly suppose that, because then I'm liable for, a crime of libel or whatever, until I have proof. If I have proof, I can publish the proof. But if I just want people to raise their raise their alert levels when dealing with this particular person, I can't do that, because, I could be sued, which isn't necessarily the legal system. That's actually possibly extra legal, because even if we had no government and no coercion, you could still say, hey, you said this thing about me and it made a lot of people pissed off and it hurt me, so I think you need to pay me back. And I would agree with that. So maybe I'm damaging the point I'm trying to make.
No, sounds good. So Dave, I want to get your closing thoughts here, kind of your life philosophy when it comes to how you live. You have kids, your family, and essentially your happiness. Obviously, you do a lot of research, you read a lot of things, and you wrap your mind around a lot of concepts that would otherwise kind of bother most people who are drawing the same conclusions that you are. But in the end, each day that goes by is one day closer to the grave. So how do you cope with just being happy, moving forward, and living your life in line with the problems that are facing us all around?
Well, I guess I like to learn. Just if somebody explained that the reason we laugh at jokes is that we get it, and that's it's a little nugget of joy, and joy makes us laugh. So when you figure something out, it makes you feel joy. And yeah, a lot of the stuff I figure out is that there's horrible people doing horrible things. But I think of a light in a room full of ugliness. Ugly sculptures and ugly paintings and dirt and maybe rat poop, whatever. Whatever it is, it's your room. You could go in there and leave the light off because it's so disgusting that you don't want to see it, or you could turn the light on, and that's going to motivate you to start cleaning it up. And I want people to turn the lights on. So I'm learning this stuff and I'm telling people about it, and sure, it's disturbing, but sometimes somebody says, oh yeah, then what about we could do this, and that would help. That would help with this problem that has been identified. And that's what I'm looking for. Lots of people to do that and contribute to identifying the horrible things that are happening and the people that are causing them or helping them come about, and we do something about it to make it harder for them and easier for them to do better, to do good things instead of bad things.
I think a lot of the guests that I have on the show would connect with what you said right there. What a great illustration of the world we're living in, and just kind of how to move forward through it all, through the problems that we do see. So if people want to learn more about you, follow your work, where would they go and what would they find?
I have a blog, pretty much my most personal blog, which is litmocracy.blogspot.com, and you mentioned that. I have a newsletter I use to encourage people to become Bitcoin dealers. Or a friend said, no, it's digital currency broker, because then you don't sound like drug dealer, which turns people off. Okay, I'm a digital currency broker, and I have a newsletter that helps people become digital currency brokers, and you can make a little bit of money. And if you're really good at customer service and responding to people, then you could make a lot of money. That's a lot of what I'm doing. So, and that newsletter is available if you go to localbitcoins.com and then you type in my username as the profile. That's actually kind of complicated. Maybe you could just put a link to it.
Sure.
For people.
Yeah, we'll be sure to do that. Dave, again, thanks for coming on the show and chatting with me today. I look forward to seeing you and doing more interviews in the future.
Excellent. Thank you.